All right. So, hello again. And if you have been following the tutorials, then hopefully you just watched the tutorial of how to create this robot model that is polygons from Polygon primitives, right? So we did a bunch of things with Polygon primitives to create this model that I am celebrating that we made. And then in this tutorial, I'm going to be going over how to label them in your outliner. And if you don't see your outliner here, you can go to Windows and go and see your outliner here. You should see your outliner, but if you don't, it's here. Okay, it's under Windows. So I'm in the perspective camera. And each of these, and you'll see when I click on them, is tied or it represents an object that's on the stage because I've used multiple objects to create this character. And it's important that we label these so that we remember which form is what, so that when I select it and start doing something to it, I know which one I have. Now, the wonderful thing about the outliner is that you see the top parts and they look grayed out. Perspective, top, front, side. These are all the cameras that we're looking out of. Where you see perspective, this is the perspective camera. Okay. When I was in my 4 view, I could see my top camera. I could see through my top camera, my front camera, and my side camera. Okay. You can also animate these cameras. But for now, I'm going to be labeling everything um, through here. Okay. So when I click on it, I want to see what it is. And I see it's my head. And I'm clicking on my return key so I can type in head. Okay. And I know that, well, I shouldn't say I know that, but for some people, they may not realize, well, why do I need to label it? If it's just me doing the modeling and doing the animation, I'll just remember or I'll just click on it until I figure it out. One, you do want to really get in the habit of doing this because you are going to be working with people if you're doing like a 3D animation or something or a game or a commercial or anything, you're going to be working with people. And so part of the workflow is labeling your things because you're going to be passing these off to other people. Um, but also because, oops, hit the wrong key. Here we go. It's also because it's going to save you time. Even if it's just you working on the project, it's going to save you serious time because you're not going to have to hunt and look for it and figure out what everything is. And then of course, one, like I said, I'm really setting this up to animate, so I need to know what all of these things are. So I recommend it for a whole host of reasons that you label your things. Um, Now I am labeling, and you're going to see me put in terms like, I should have done hip, left hip. And you can do left hip joint if you need a reminder that that's a joint. So for example, I put in neck and I know that the neck is a joint in this case, but if it's something that you're sort of getting adjusted to, you may want to put joint there. Now, notice how I'm labeling in a way where I'm not leaving a lot of spaces. I'm not giving it long names. I'm trying to use one word names. And then if I need to put joint, I'll put joint there to remind me that's a joint. So I'm going to keep labeling, but before I keep labeling, I'm going to show you sort of at this point a little peek into what I'm going to do next. So once I have all of these labeled, I'm going to do my hierarchy. And so when I think about my neck joint, I'm thinking about what moves my neck joint and or sorry, what moves my head. And what moves my head is my neck, right? And again, it's a moving joint. So hierarchy-wise, my head is going to go in. See that plus sign? I'm clicking using my middle mouse button right now. And what I want to make sure I do is put my head inside of my neck joint. So see how now I don't see the head icon here, but I do see that plus sign. That plus sign allows me to see that, allows me to know that there's something inside of that neck. And inside of that neck, in this case, is the head. So that when I go to rotate, using a rotation tool, when I go to rotate my head, when I go to rotate my head, I need to rotate it using my neck joint so that I can rotate it in place. If I want the head to go side to side and all of that, again, I'm using my neck joint to do so. So I'm not going to do all of that just yet. I'm going to finish labeling, but this is also another very key reason for why you want to label it. You want to label it so that you can stay organized with all of this. So I did a left hip joint, and I just did it as my left. If I sort of thought about it, and I might change it just to be clear, this is really the robot's right hip, right? So again, this is the front of the stage, and if I really think about it, I'm gonna click here to make sure I'm doing it right. That's the right side of the robot itself. So I'm going to stay with that. Now I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to come to this one. And again, I'm going to hit the return key and type in left, and notice how I'm not leaving any spaces. And I'll again put joint there just so that I remember that that's a joint. And then I'm going to go to my thigh, and that's my right thigh. And see how I put an underscore there? You can do that, or you can just do a lowercase and a copy. It's up to you. And then here is my left thigh. Okay. And then my right knee. And I'll put joint there to just remind me of that. And then my left. Sorry, I can't see. There we go. And let me take that in out of there. There we go. And then we're here, and that is my right. And you can, I'm going to call it lower leg, or I'm going to call it leg for myself. And then this is my left leg. And so I double click that time instead of hitting return. And that is my ankle. So that's my right ankle. And there I'm going to put joint to remind me that that's a joint. And this is my left ankle. And again, I'm going to put joint. Just tightening this up to make sure that it's clear. Again, even the times when you are not working with a team, you want to pay attention to the correct order of things because it means that it will become a habit for you. And that way, you don't have to worry about trying to remind yourself, oh, I'm with a team, I'm not working by myself. You could have started something by yourself and then gotten with a team, start working with the team. Again, you don't want it to be disorganized. And as you continue to grow in what you can do, when you show people evidence of your work, they're going to look for that order too. So it's really a good idea to begin by staying in order. So this is my right foot. And this is my left foot. And here I'm up to my right shoulder. And I'll put joint just to remind me. And I'll put left shoulder joint. And this is my right upper arm. And just scrolling now. This is my left upper arm. And then underneath that is my elbow. So my right elbow, and I'll put joint. So again, if I'm doing it by myself, I may know that my elbow is my joint, but if I'm working with a group of people, a team, I don't have to worry about them questioning what is that. And again, that time is very essential, that we can do things quick and efficiently, and labeling really helps us with that. And so this will be my right lower arm. And then this will be my left lower arm. Okay, so, in that short bit of time, we were able to label all of our items so that we know immediately what they are. There's going to be some additional work I do here. So where we see what I call the waist, I'm going to have actually 2 of those. So I'm going to duplicate that. And now it should be down here. And for now, I'm going to keep it called waist, but I might relabel it. But I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it right inside of waist. So again, we can see that I have that it's parented. Think about parenting in children, where you see the neck joint. Right now, the neck joint is a parent and the head is a child. So wherever the neck goes, the child will follow, which in this case, the child is the head. Keep in mind that it is possible to be a parent and a child at the same time, depending on the situation. But right now, the neck is the parent of the head. So wherever the neck goes, the head will go. Can the neck behave independently? Yes. But, most of us don't want our heads to flip up like that off of our neck. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go through the hierarchy system and putting all of this in order. So I am immediately thinking about how I want this to move. So you can see that the waist is going to be a key player, but I have a sub waist here. My chest right there is going to need to rotate. And when I think about what moves that rotation, it's going to be my waist. But the reason why I have two is because sometimes I'm going to want this chest to rotate up and down while my lower half of my body stays put. And then other times I'm going to want that waist. When I move this waist, I want all of the whole thing to move, right? The upper and the lower body. So I'm going to take my chest, middle mouse button click, and bring it down, and see how I put it right on top of waist one. So you can see that white box and that plus sign. And I'm going to drop it. So now we see how the waist one is a child of waist, but it's also the parent of chest. So when I click on my waist now, I want you to notice what moves and what doesn't. Right now, when I click on my waist one, it moves my torso or my chest. However, what it doesn't move is my neck, right? So because my neck and head stayed in the same place, that's probably not a good idea. So again, I'm going to take my neck joint, which already has my head in it, and I'm going to click on middle mouse button click and bring that right on top of waist one. So again, with waist one, I can rotate it and get all of that together. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So again, my neck can still move just the head. Okay, but it can also be moved with the waist one. And in truth, it can also be moved with the overall waist, or what I'm calling waist for now. Okay. So you can see how I'm beginning to build that hierarchy. Now, when we see my torso move without my arms, that's probably not the best idea, right? So now I should take a look at my arms. So I'm looking at my shoulders first. I know that my shoulder is going to, first of all, need to move my upper arm. And notice I'm keeping them together, the right with the right. So I'm going to middle mouse click on the arm, the upper arm, and put it right on top of the right shoulder joint. And then we have that parent relationship, right? And it's always good to check, to not just do a whole lot of them and not check, because it's a rude awakening if you did them all without checking and then go, oh, wait a minute. So I see my elbow. Now the elbow is not going to move my upper arm, right? But it is going to be still controlled by my shoulder joint. So that goes right on top of my shoulder. So see that line right there means that they're equal. So again, the upper arm is moved by the shoulder, but so is the elbow. Okay. So again, if I check, I see that that's what's happening. But my elbow does need to move my lower arm. So my middle mouse button click and put it right on top of that elbow. Okay, and we see that plus sign, which tells me there's something in there. And see the difference where you see the straight line here versus see this line that goes in? That tells me that's a child. So when we move this, we can now see that all of that moves together. Now I still have to move this whole unit here, because the truth is when I move this, I still don't move my arm. And so I'm going to actually take this whole little family that I have here and bring it under my waist one. Middle mouse, right on top of waist one. Okay. And so now we see that straight line. So we see that the chest, the neck joint, and the shoulder, right shoulder joint in this case, are all equal, right? But they also have children. Okay. And of course, they are also the children of waist one and waist overall. So watch what happens now. I can move all that together. Okay, so when I use waist one, it moves almost all of my upper half of the robot body. And that's pretty good. So now I'm going to do the same for the left side of my upper body. There's my left shoulder. And I'm going to take my upper arm and make that a child again. Remember, I'm using my middle mouse button to do that. And I'm going right on top of it. Now I'm going to get that joint, that elbow joint. And remember, it's equivalent to the lower arm, meaning that we can call them sisters, right? They're not apparent to, they're both the child of the shoulder joint. But then the lower left arm is, in fact, the child of the elbow. And so we just sort of think about how the humanoid body moves, right? And we know that in order to move my lower arm, I'm going to need to bend my elbow. So that's how. When you do more modeling, you always want to think about the skeleton system. It may be a pre-existing thing that you're modeling, like a snake or a human or a dog or a cat or whatever. And some of those things, of course, most of those have skeletal systems, but you either have to imagine or refer to something to understand what type of skeletal system do you need to build. So in this case, that's what we're doing. So now I have my left shoulder joint set up so that when I click on it, I move my whole arm. I can just click on my elbow joint and that will move my lower arm. Okay. And now I need to bring all of that up to that waist one so that again, when I want to move half of my body or my torso, boom, it can move independently. So again, I want to show you the equals, right? So the chest, the neck joint, the right shoulder joint, and the left shoulder joint, they're all, I'll say, siblings, right? Where the parent is waist one, and truthfully, the parent their greater parent is waist. But so all of these are all four of these are children of waist one and waist. But we can see that plus sign tells us all of this information is in there. And it can get pretty complex depending on what you're doing. If you all have ever watched Transformers, you'll see what I mean there as well. So now I can click on waist one, see how all of them are selected, and I can move them at the same time, right? But I can also move them individually. Okay. So that is the hierarchy that I'm creating here. And that's why I said in the modeling of this primitive, of all these primitives, is that you can't do oblong shapes or forms here because it won't rotate correctly. Okay. So now let's do the lower body. So there's my trunk. The trunk needs to not go to the waist now, waist one. It's going to just go to the overall waist. So again, it allows me to move parts independently. So if I'm just going to move my upper body, I have a joint to do that now. And when I'm ready to move my lower body and my upper body, because you really don't do that without the rest of your upper body, I can do that too now. Okay, so let's get the rest of this going. So I have my trunk and my waist, right? So you see the trunk is equivalent with is equal with the waist one. So they're like siblings. But now I see my hip joint. Hip joint, think of it similar to the shoulder joint. So I'm going to middle mouse and drop it into, not the left. See how I caught myself right there? The left hip thigh, I'm going to drop it right into my right hip joint. So both are rights. The right hip joint and the right thigh. I had to be careful there. I almost made a mistake. So then I have my right knee joint, which is part of my right hip joint. It's equivalent to my thigh. But then my knee, my right leg is going to be the child of my right leg joint. And so let's take a look at that for now. See that? So that's moving pretty well. I'm going to check that knee, make sure that lower thigh is moved, that lower leg is moved. And now I'm going to go to my right ankle. And that ankle should be the child of the knee joint, right? So again, it's equal to that leg. And then my foot, my right foot, is a child of that ankle. So again, it can move along with that ankle. It's going to move when I move my knee, right? So that's going to need to go with it. And of course, it moves when I move my entire hip. Okay, so now I got that moving. Okay, so again, I still am going to need to parent this to my greater waist and see how it is equal to my trunk. Okay, so when I do that, and actually now that I think about it, oh no, that's fine. Let me just double check. And again, these are those checks that sometimes you need to do to make sure, like, oh, do I mean to do that? And it's like, yeah, I did. I did mean to do that. Okay. So now I'm going to do the same thing to my left, and it's going to be a little bit easier because I can see all the lefts here. And my hip is the parent of my thigh. It's also, the hip is also the parent of my knee. And then my knee is the parent of my leg. Okay. My knee joint is also the parent of my ankle. Right? So I want to make sure I'm doing that right. But my foot, of course, is the child of my ankle. I always want to check that. Make sure everything is moving the way it needs to. Because again, I use the transformers as an example. You can get quite robust in your hierarchy system. Now, this is sort of a primitive way of creating joints. Maya, of course, has more sophisticated joints in here as well, but these joints work well for what we're doing right now. So that's why I said, hey, let's just put them in this way, nice and easy and quick. So I'm going to minimize all that so I can see, and I'm going to go up to that waist. So I'm going to middle mouse click and drop that right on top of my waist and see how, don't do that. Let me take a look. There's my hip. Wonder what happened. I'm gonna do that again. There we go. I think I just brought my knee or something, but at any rate, I brought it all the way in. And again, it can move independently all by itself, but I can also move this entire body now. You've been seeing me rotate because a lot of the stuff I would do is rotate. But if I wanted to move this entire body, I can now with just one click of the waist. Now the waist, the thing that I'm calling waist, I could have called it core, which is not a bad idea, but I just called it waist 1, waist 2 for now. So if you've been watching this, congratulations, because you've done quite a bit in organizing your whole joint system. You've labeled everything, and you have parented everything so that you have an amazing, excellent hierarchy system that's labeled and ready for you to use and animate, which is the next thing we'll do. Okay, see you there.